Good afternoon to you and welcome to Ogun State Television News at 2. I am Adebola Oshomoji. In a bid to put a stop to farmers' herders' clashes, the Joint Security Intervention Squad has been launched in Ogun State by Governor Dapo Abiodun. The state governor also assured that the squad will relieve the full complement of Amotekun, which will soon bathe in Ogun, while cautioning on the dangers of fake news to national security. Tunde Olaniro reports.
I have the honor and privilege to commission these vehicles and motorcycles to the glory of God and to the use of the Joint Security Task Force for the affected areas of the farmer herders crisis.
The commissioning of the Joint Security Intervention Squad was part of the agreement reached at the stakeholders meeting organized by the state government on the farmers' herdsmen crisis.
I must emphasize that this particular task force is for those 3 local government areas that are currently affected by this crisis. The task force operations is going to extend across the length and breadth of the state, particularly in areas where you have this kind of crisis.
The squad comprises the military, police, Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, among others.
This incident is beginning to take an ethnic coloration, which is a misrepresentation. A crime is a crime, regardless of who commits it. We should not ascribe a crime to a particular ethnic group. What we noticed when we were in the area is that the cellular phone network in that area is very scanty. By the time you leave Papalanto, as you begin to head to Ilaro, you begin to see that, there's hardly any network on your phone. By the time you get to Egua and Kitu, your phone begins to roam to Benin Republic. So you find out that our people in that place may even have a hard time making distress calls when they are under siege. But this administration has immediately taken it upon ourselves to resolve that. We've spoken and met with the telcos. We will soon be deploying masts to that area to give that area the required cellular telephone coverage that is needed.
The governor observed that the trend of fake news is becoming worrisome and not good for the security of the nation.
People have this preoccupation of sharing news that they consider sensational without authenticating, the genuineness of this news. There are videos that we've seen that didn't even happen in Nigeria that people claim to be happening in Ogun State. We're working with our Ministry of Justice to ensure that we have a law in place that provides for punitive, very serious punitive measures against people that are caught propagating fake news because they are threatening the peace of our country.
The provision of the security equipment is just the first batch of many to come, according to Prince Abiodun.
In the last 1 week, we've been inundated with calls and news that our citizens have become refugees in a neighboring country. In fact, one of the fake news specified that there are 5,000 Ogun State indigenes that are in Benin Republic. And I said to them that 5,000, how can 5,000 Ogun State indigenes enter another country and it would have become a diplomatic issue between that country and Nigeria? Why would 5,000 Ogun State indigenes prefer to go to another country when they can come to Ilaro or come to Abeokuta?
The Commissioner of Police in the state assured the people of the state of their safety.
And to assure you that we'll put these vehicles to optimal use, and that to remind our people out there that yes, if they were in doubt that the government was not serious about having to ensure that they continue to live together peacefully, at least with this intervention, they can rest assured that the government is serious.
Other resolutions at the stakeholders meeting that has already been implemented include the setting up of peacekeeping committee as well as distribution of palliative to victims of the conflict. Tunde Olaniro OGTV News.
Ogun State government will continue to sustain its policy on investors-friendly business environment to show up its industrial profile. Ogun State Governor Prince Dapo Abiodun made this declaration while receiving the management of Mekano International Limited in his office. More in this report by Tunde Olanio.
The vision of the current administration in Ogun State is to create a focused and qualitative governance while creating the enabling environment for a public-private sector partnership, which is fundamental to the economic growth of the state and individual prosperity of the people. To achieve this, the current administration established various agencies and policies, including the establishment of the State Enterprise Development Agency to strengthen small and medium-scale enterprises and boost their capacity. The Ogun State Investment Promotion Agency was also set up to provide a one-stop shop and eliminate unnecessary delay in processing necessary documents, while the Public-Private Sector Partnership Office has also been established to ensure that the state has a template, transparent and accessible. All these are fast-yielding fruits, with Mekano International Limited seeking to spread its business tentacles in the state.
We are looking also to get another land and to increase our investment in Ogun State. Really, we thank you very much for the time and for the help we are getting from His Excellency and his government.
The governor described his administration in the state in one word: a business-friendly administration.
And assure you that this administration is an investor-friendly administration. As a matter of fact, our vision is very specific and targeted towards bringing in investors and creating an enabling environment for investors in the state.
He stressed that all the programs and projects of the current administration are aimed at making living and doing business in the state a pleasurable one.
Get our attention. We will look forward to partnering with you. Be rest assured about that. Again, like I said, anything that we can do to make the state more conducive to people like yourself, be rest assured that we'll do that. And we started by, what we did was, we encapsulated our developmental pillars around an acronym we call SHARE, which is I for infrastructure, S for social well-being and welfare, E for education, Y for youth empowerment and job creation, and A for agriculture. So that is how we see our developmental plan in the state. And what will concern you most is the infrastructure. I'm sure you are coming from the entertainment, so that we're already working on the Shagamu to Expressway. What you saw there, we are doing across the length and breadth of the state.
The company presented the state government with cartons of disposable face masks and a brand new pickup vehicle assembled in their factory in Ogun State. Tunde Olaniro, OGTV News.
Ogun State House of Assembly has constituted an ad hoc committee to investigate allegations of gross misconduct leveled against the Deputy Speaker, Oludare Kadiri, while the committee is to submit its findings within 72 hours, in line with the Assembly's standing order. The Speaker, Right Honorable Olakunle Oluomo, who presided over the plenary held at the Assembly Complex in Abeokuta, announced the Majority Leader, Honorable Yusuf Sherif, as the chairman. Correspondent Kolawole Osho covered the plenary. Details of his report are presented in this package.
The constitution of the committee by the Speaker, Right Honorable Olakunle Oluomo, followed the adoption of the report on the notice for removal of the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Oludare Kadiri, from office for alleged gross misconduct, as presented by the Clerk and Head of Legislative Services, Mr. Deji Adeyemo, through a motion moved by Honorable Akim Balogun, seconded by Adegoke Adeyanju, with the support of all other lawmakers. The committee was thereafter ratified after a motion moved by Honorable Damilola Shuneye, seconded by Sikrat Ajibola, and unanimously supported by other lawmakers through a voice vote.
Having consulted with other principal officers, I hereby set up this committee to investigate the issues raised against the Deputy Speaker alongside his response. They are Honorable Yusuf Abiodun, Chairman, Honorable Abdul Oladunjoye, Member, Honorable Latifat Bolanya Ajayi, Member, Honorable Adeyemi Ademiwa, Member, and Honorable Mudupe Olukepo Mujota, Member. Mr. Okon will be the Secretary of the Committee. The committee shall within 72 hours report its finding to this House as so ordered.
Earlier, while presenting the report, Mr. Adeyemo stated that on Thursday, 25th February 2021, he received a letter titled Notice for Removal of the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Dare Kadiri, from office for alleged gross misconduct and was endorsed by 20 honorable members. He said in consonance with the provisions of Order 2, Rule 11.1 of the Standing Orders of the House, the notice was served on the Deputy Speaker of the House, Honorable Dare Kadiri, on Friday, 26th February 2021, to meet the deadline of 24 hours, and his response was received early hour of Monday, 1st of March 2021, to fulfill the 72 hours period provided for the response on Order 2, Rule 11.2.
Having received the response, the Deputy Speaker was subsequently served with a letter directing him to stand down from plenary sessions of the House forthwith until he is acquitted of the charges as provided in Order 2, Rule 11.3.
In other development, the Assembly has confirmed the appointment of Governor Dapo Abiodun's nominees for the post of chairman and members of the State Independent Electoral Commission, OCSEC, having found them eligible and suitable to assume the exalted offices being nominated for by the governor. The approval was sequel to the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole House, chaired by Speaker Oluomo, as presented by the Majority Leader, Yusuf Sharif, who also moved the motion for its adoption and seconded by Honorable Bolanle Ajayi.
By the adoption of this report, I hereby confirm on behalf of this House the nomination of the members of the State Independent Electoral Commission for this year as follows. Mr. Babatunde Adetono Oshiboju, Chairman, confirmed. Mr. Olatunji Kakoni, Member, confirmed. Mr. Tajuddin Soyeolu Omolaja, Member, confirmed. Mr. Yodele Evankoli, Member, confirmed. Mrs. Bemi Onosaya, Member, confirmed.
It will be recalled that the Assembly had earlier screened the nominees with an admonition to them to further strengthen the nation's electoral process at the local level.
Former President of the Senate, Dr. Bukola Saraki, has called on the federal government to provide the needed leadership, engage national and international stakeholders to find solutions to the social, economic, and security challenges facing the country. He spoke in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, after a closed-door meeting with former President Olusegun Obasanjo at his presidential hilltop in the state capital. Dr. Saraki suggested both national and international discussions to address those issues, saying that the current challenges are beyond what the ruling party alone can address, while expressing optimism about the future and development of the country. Saraki also denied any plot to remove the national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Uche Secondus, saying that the Reconciliatory and Strategic Committee of the party is making progress in the bid to rebuild the party.
I keep on repeating is that these issues are issues that should involve everybody. I think that when we talk about kidnapping or we talk about sense of belonging, these are issues that cross party lines. And what is required now is for government to provide leadership in bringing all stakeholders together. Let us discuss and see how we can address some of these issues. I know it's a great, we are very hopeful for the future of this country. We are very hopeful for the future that everybody will have a sense of belonging. But I think it's important that we all must be able to be on the table and discuss. We can tap into a lot of resources. Even on the issue of security, there are a lot of people with a lot of experience.
The federal government has taken delivery of 3,924,000 doses of Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines against COVID-19 from the COVAX facility. Report says that the Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Chairman PTF, Boss Mustafa, received the consignment on behalf of the federal government and through the Ministry of Health handed them over to the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency for onward certification by NAFDAC. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 received the first phase of vaccines with excitement, describing the arrival as a milestone achievement in the national response to COVID-19 pandemic in the country. International partners and other stakeholders acknowledged President Muhammadu Buhari for effective development of resource, as well as commended both international and domestic collaborations for successful acquisitions of vaccines. The National Healthcare Development Agency and NAFDAC assured Nigerians of adequate revalidation of the vaccines and prompt commencement of the vaccination. The National Security Advisor, retired Major General Babangida Mogono, has said President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the declaration of Zamfara State a no-fly zone as part of efforts to tackle the security challenges being witnessed in the state. He said the president also approved the recommendation that mining activities in the state should stop immediately. Monguno disclosed this in an interview with the State House correspondent at the end of the meeting of the National Security Council held at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. He added that Buhari has directed the Minister of Defense and the National Security Advisor to deploy massive military and intelligence assets to rescue normalcy that's part of the country.
And lead us into a situation of unhappiness will have himself to blame at the end of the day. Already the president has given directives to the military and the intelligence organizations to trail and flush out all the people that have been on our watch list. And I can assure you there's quite a handful of people on our watch list. They will be trailed, they will be rooted out, and they will be brought to book, they will be prosecuted, and they will be made an example of. And anybody who wants to use this situation to blackmail the government should also think we will not allow this country to drift into state failure. And with effect from today, the new service chiefs have been given directives by the Minister of Defense, conveyed by the President to the Minister of Defense, to reclaim all areas that have been dominated by bandits, by
Nigerian economist and a global finance expert, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, has resumed work as the Director General of the World Trade Organization. The Nigerian former Minister of Finance, Ngozi, is a Nigerian-American economist and international development expert. Bomi Adegun, in this report, x-rays the woman's agenda for the World Trade Organization as started on her first day in office. His report.
Appoint Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala of Nigeria as the next Director General of the WTO. It is so agreed.
History was made on the 1st of March 2021 as Nigeria's former Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, resumed on the first day of March as the World Trade Organization Director General. She makes history as the first woman and the first African to take up the post.
Being the first woman and the first African means that one really has to perform. If I want to really make Africa and women proud, I have to produce results. And that's where my mind is at now. How do we work together with members to get results?
Dressed in Ankara fabric, which is a trademark and constant dressing stars, she walked into the over 26 years organization in Geneva, Switzerland. Addressing the WTO General Council, Director General WTO Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala called on members to do things differently to achieve reforms necessary to keep the WTO relevant, starting with swift action to curb harmful fisheries subsidies and to help scale up COVID-19 vaccine production and distribution.
How can we also encourage finding what I call a third way in which vaccines can be manufactured in many more countries, whilst taking care that we don't discourage research and innovation, which is linked to intellectual property rights. So this is an area of work. Then we have the issue of the dispute settlement system, which is people call the jewel in the crown of the WTO. There's no point really agreeing on more rules. We're the very and only place in the world where countries can bring trade disputes does not work. It's paralyzed.
The new head of the WTO noted that the high expectations for a tenure can only be achieved if members are willing to compromise and reach agreement. Okonjo-Iweala suggested that prospects for a successful 12th ministerial conference will be enhanced if members target a manageable number of deliverables for this year and set up longer work programs to address issues that cannot realistically be resolved within that time frame. The World Trade Organization is the only global organization dealing with the rules of trade between nations. At its heart is the WTO agreements negotiated and signed by the bulk of the world's trading nations and ratified in their parliaments. The goal is to ensure that trade flows as smoothly, predictably, and freely as possible.
Trade is important for the 21st century, is important for prosperity, is important for resilience, is important for sustainable growth. And the WTO is right at the heart of this.
Bumi Adigu, OGTV News.
And in foreign news, Texas will lift mask requirement and allow business to reopen at full capacity next week, Governor Greg Abbott has announced. Texas is the largest U.S. state to end its mask mandate. Mr. Abbott has faced criticism from his party over the measure, which was imposed last July. But the administration of U.S. President Joe Biden has made it clear coronavirus restrictions are still necessary. The announcement in Texas came as similar rules were lifted in other states, including Michigan, and also ended its mask mandate. And finally, in sport, Mikel Arteta says he is fully focused on doing much better at Arsenal after he was linked with the Barcelona manager's job. Reports surfaced in Spain this week claiming presidential candidate Orlando Prague has earned a move for Gunners boss Aeta if he won the race to return to Barca. It was during this previous spell in the role that Laporelle appointed Pep Guardiola as a head coach and ushered in an era of sustained success. Aeta went to work under Guardiola at Manchester City and took over as Arsenal manager in December 2019. The appeal by Confederation of African Football, CAF, President Hamad against